I'm sorry, I don't know what my glasses are doing in the majority of this video. They're a little bit crooked, so just bear with me. So I have a question for the men out there. Do you, like the cisgender heterosexual men that are in relationships with women, do you like listening to your partner, your girlfriend, your spouse? And the reason I have this question is because I'm about to play a clip of a Jordan Peterson quote that I saw on the Diary of a CEO podcast. Great podcast. I listened to it a ton with one of the guests that was on it, who is a divorce lawyer. And he's also, this was a wonderful episode. I suggest everybody go listen to it. But this clip of Jordan Peterson talking about listening to your spouse or your wife for 90 minutes. And if you don't listen at the outset, you're going to have to listen in divorce court. I'm going to play it for you, and then I'm going to give you my thoughts on it.
Jordan Peterson said something to me. Jack, have you got my phone?
Yeah.
I just wanted to play you this 30 seconds of something he said.
Everybody keeps telling me I have to have a conversation with Jordan Peterson.
It would be fascinating.
I imagine two people are telling him the same thing, which is...
My friend is going through some difficulties in his relationship, and I sent him this little clip, which I keep this clip saved in my phone, but I have to send it to so many of my male friends.
That's a compliment.
But this is what Jordan says, and it relates to slippage.
Here's something to understand about your marriage, okay? You are going to have to listen to your wife 90 minutes a week, okay? And you might as well just get that through your thick skull. Now, why? If you listen to her enough, you can make peace and you can play. So there's a huge benefit. If you don't listen to her, that will accumulate, and you'll listen to her in divorce court.
So I did not love the way that sounded, because it made it sound like, at least to me, that he was saying that husbands had to listen to their wives and it was a chore, right? That's the sense that I got from the way that I interpreted that, right? That it was a chore that husbands had to do to listen to their wives so that they didn't pay the price later. And I want to ask, if men who are married to women, right, in heterosexual relationships, do you feel like it's a chore to have to listen to listen to your wife, right? Is that work? Do you view it as pleasurable, or do you view it as something you have to get through, like it's a slog? You have to get through that in order to then get to whatever it is you would like to get to after the fact. And then the divorce lawyer, he goes into his feelings about the quote and his thoughts about it. But it felt like, or it sounded to me like Jordan Peterson was framing listening to your spouse as you have to do it beforehand so you don't have to do it later. But my question is, wouldn't you want to listen to your spouse, right? Don't you want to have conversations with your partner, with your spouse? And then we'll get into if those are going to be difficult or hard conversations, right? Because nobody likes to have those conversations. But do you think of all of the conversations that you are having with your spouse as difficult or hard conversations? Or is there a realm where you like listening to your spouse because you like listening to her? And then the divorce lawyer shared his thoughts on this particular quote that I'm going to play right now.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's a piece of what I'm talking about for sure. It feels a little like the advice last time I was on, I was saying I found offensive, which is happy wife, happy life. Like, I think there's this sense of like, well, what a man has to do is just sort of tolerate the, like, listen, I don't think most men like don't want to listen to their wife for 90, because that seems to me, and I know he's being hyperbolic, and I love Jordan's work, and I find him fascinating, and I really enjoy him. But when someone says to me like, oh, you have to listen to your wife for 90 minutes a week, like that feels like you're going to sit there and be like, oh, how many more minutes do I have to do this for? You know, there was a time where you couldn't wait to hear her. Like, she was interesting.
So, right. According to what the divorce lawyer was saying, right? There was a time where you couldn't wait to hear your wife, where she was interesting and you were interested, right? And she was interested in what you had to say too. All of it was true, right? There was a reciprocal amount of interest in terms of listening to your partner. And so I want to ask, are you interested in hearing what your partner has to say? And then the host's follow-up question to what the divorce lawyer just said was really illuminating for me, because he basically was saying, do you think that, well, here, I'll just play it for you and then I'll give you my thoughts.
But do you think the women that are listening to this right now that have husbands and boyfriends think their husband and boyfriend likes it when they said, hey, we need to talk about something?
But see, when in your life has someone saying that to you been a precursor to something good? Hey, we need to talk about something.
Never.
That never. That's like, is this siren a good siren? When is a siren ever good? Like, there's certain phrases, we really need to have a conversation. That is not a good entry point. And that's not, because it means there's something wrong. But before you get to that, like, how many women, would say that, in the interaction with their spouse, like, they don't want like let's have a 90 minutes in the penalty box where you have to listen to me talk to you. Like, that seems terrible. The thought of having to do that as like a practice sounds sort of like, all right, well, if I endure that for 90 minutes, the bonus is I get sex or something. Like, and that seems crazy to me.
Right. So then we had the host ask that question about how many do women really think that men want to then have a conversation if it starts off with, we really need to talk about something, or something along those lines. And I think it's really interesting that the host jumped right to, we really need to talk, in terms of that was the frame for the man listening to his spouse. And then the divorce lawyer said, well, what about before that, right? What about before it comes to a point where you need to talk about a particular issue, right? The idea that the husband is thinking, he has to spend 90 minutes in the penalty box to listen to his spouse, like, that's not appealing for the wife either, or the girlfriend or the partner in this situation. So there is a time and a place for having difficult and hard conversations, and then ways to make it such that those conversations are maybe not as difficult and not as onerous and as much of a slog as they could be and as they can be. Right. And I'm going to talk about, I'm going to have a video on how to prepare for a difficult conversation. I've got a workshop about that. There's another video that I've already made about how to transform an argument into a productive conversation. So there are ways to make it such that those difficult and hard conversations are not as difficult and are not as hard as maybe they have been in the past. But in generally speaking, right? Listening to your spouse, listening to your wife is the framework that is present in a lot of men's minds. It's a slog, that it is work, or is there a way to approach listening to your spouse, listening to your partner, listening to your girlfriend with enthusiasm, right? With, I am curious about what she has to say to me. I am curious about her day. I am curious about what's going on in her life. And if that is not currently the case for you, then is there anything that can be done that makes it such that you are genuinely more interested in hearing what your spouse or your partner or your girlfriend has to say?